And welcome once again to another episode of the HoriZone Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald. You can find me on Twitter at Bob McDonald. And my co-host Jimmy Lemke should be joining us momentarily. And you can find him on Twitter at PantherU. And of course, you can follow the podcast on Twitter as well at HoriZoneRT. So for this episode, we are doing something a little different. We've actually invited members of student media from across the Horizon League to join us, and I will go ahead and let them all introduce themselves and who they, which school and which media outlet they represent. So I'm going to start. I'm going to go ahead and start with Mark.
My name is Mark Weems. I am representing the Jam Bar at Youngstown State University. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Big Weems, Weems. I'm excited to talk about YSU and hope they don't win less than 8 games this year.
All right. Next up is Tim. Tim.
Hey guys, I'm Tim Daniel covering Northern Kentucky University. Actually work not in student media. I have an outlet called 48 Minutes. It's a full basketball podcast network, and actually we're credentialed full-time for NKU. So I guess if you want to follow me, it's at Tim Daniel 518, and the show is at 48 Minutes Network.
All right, great. All right, Ryan.
Hey, I'm Ryan Gregory. I'm with the Campus Citizen at IUPUI, and you can follow me on Twitter at Ryan_Gregory. And excited to talk about my Jags.
All right. And last but not least, Dakota.
Hey, guys. I'm in my second year at Oakland University. I wrote for the Oakland Post last year, a student newspaper, and then I took the position as sports director at a radio station, 88.3 WXOU. So I've been calling Oakland's men's basketball games play-by-play right on our station for about a year and a half now. And you can follow me on Twitter at Breck Dakota. That's at BRECHT. And then DAKOTA, or follow our official sports Twitter handle. That's at WXOU. Excited to be here.
Great, good, and thank you all. Thank you very much for all of you joining us. I know as an ex-student journalist, this student media has a special place in my heart, and so I'm definitely looking forward to this, as I know from my standpoint that was kind of a formative experience for myself, even though journalism was not my eventual end profession. But, I got some time left in this earth, so you never know. I guess before we get started, I wanted to kind of ask you guys this question with regards to kind of your own personal experiences. So what made you decide to what made you all decide to get into the media and what was your specific interest, and kind of what drew you, since you've been involved, what has kind of drawn you to your respective teams?
I guess I'll go. I'm born and raised in Youngstown. I didn't start off in journalism by no means. I meant to be a doctor, so that went real well for me. Okay. But, I think I'm sure just like the rest of you guys, a love for sports is kind of just what pulled me in. And, being able to watch a team that you grew up watching and now you get to report on them, I guess was the main pull. I think being able to go watch, Bo Pelini get really mad about things every weekend, and then, go watch the basketball teams and those kinds of things. Teams that you grew up with, I think that's always a cool experience.
Great.
For me personally, it was more just looking to get my foot in the door when it came to journalism when I got to IUPUI, and I ended up falling in love with the Jaguars. I mean, I love watching the way they play. Coach Gardner does a great job with his team, and I've really been fortunate to be able to cover IUPUI for the last 3 years.
Okay, great.
Oh, weirdly enough, I actually had NKU season tickets till the second game of the year last year, and I had been applying for credentials for a while. So finally I got to know their SID, and they put me on there, and now, I've followed them now through that. I went to Louisville last year for their NIT game, so it's been pretty cool.
All right, great.
Well, for myself, I grew up in a little little farm town where we didn't really have much of an opportunity to start with that stuff. And as a kid, I'd always, call the games as I watched them, and stupid things like Madden games and outside in the yard with my friends. And then when I got to Oakland, I started writing for the newspaper, and I found out that I wasn't too bad at it, and that was just because as a young kid, I consumed all that information from all these different websites, reading so many sports articles. So we got going with that, and then I got an opportunity to start calling games, and they liked what I did, and I've been calling play-by-play ever since.
All right, great. All right. So let's get down to let's kind of get down to the guts of it here. We're finally in the regular season. We're playing games that count now, and so far it's been kind of tough sledding for the Horizon League teams. Although I should point out that both Northern Kentucky and IUPUI have been the only schools who seem to have succeeded in beating Division I opponents. So we have that going. They have that going for them. Specifically, I wanted to talk a little bit, but I did also want to talk about kind of the situation where and the situation over in Oakland, where I know in episodes past we've talked about the kind of the uncertainty of the coming season, and so last Friday they played Toledo, and they lost by 1. So Dakota, what was your takeaway from Friday night? Just kind of given the uncertainty and kind of the I don't know that was going on prior to the season starting.
Well, for not just myself and for the rest of the media at Oakland, and for Coach Greg Campy, who's going into his 35th season, it's been a year where coming into the season, he had no clue who was going to be his guy. He's always had that guy. Before it was Cave Fowler. Last year it was Kendrick Nunn. He's always had that guy that he knew was going to come out and score at least 20 points a night for him and get him those points. So that was the main question going into the season. Oakland lost over 80% of their scoring last year. Kendrick Nunn with 25.9 points a game. Jalen Hayes with 18.8. Martez Walker with 17.6. And Nick Daniels with 8.5. So when you lose that much scoring, obviously the question marks are going to be there. And for myself, the rest of the media members around Oakland, there was some real concern coming into the year. They started off their first exhibition game against Hillsdale, won by 6. And Hillsdale's a formidable opponent. They only lost to Toledo by 9. And then they came out against Kalamazoo College, again, a D3. Not a good team at all. The exhibition game you're supposed to win. But they won big. They won 99-45. They really put it to them. And then coming up against Toledo, the 14th ranked mid-major in all of college basketball, a team that's supposed to be really, really good this year. And Oakland took them down to the wire, down by 8 points with less than 2 minutes left. True freshman transfer Kamari Newman, he's a sophomore now, redshirt sophomore, hit a big 3 with less than a minute left, and it came all the way down to a wire. If it wasn't for a missed free throw, they would have went to OT with a really good Toledo team. Okay. Xavier Hill-Mays dropped 30 points for Oakland. That was huge. He looks like so far he's going to be the main guy for him. He's going to be their scorer. So a lot of the question marks were answered early on this season, and everything went right in that last game besides the loss. And Coach Campy was really, really excited after that. Okay.
All right. Mark, I'm going to have to ask about Youngstown State, especially after Saturday against Akron. I thought that final score was a typo.
No, unfortunately, it was not.
Yeah. So, and then that's on top of the loss to Pitt on Tuesday. So, I know it's early in the season, but you're looking at the Youngstown State team that didn't win against the Division I. As far as I remember, they didn't win against the Division I team last season, and now they're 2 games in, and they still haven't won any. Is there a Division I win in their future?
I definitely think so. I think the big problem is, as crazy as it sounds, there aren't a single player on this team that Jerry Slocum recruited or coached. And it's only been a year and a half. And I think that was Jared Calhoun's reasoning. He didn't want any of Slocum's guys, and nothing against Jerry Slocum, but Jerry Slocum played a very slow half court, and Calhoun really wants to just get out and go. Get out and go. I don't care if the shots fall, just go. Shoot as many as you want and get out and go. And obviously against Akron, that didn't work. You give up 98 points. I think that's what's going to be their Achilles heel again, is just that we're very young. There aren't a lot of older guys on this team. We only have 3 guys from last year that even played, and only 2 starters. And both of the starters are sophomores. So, their game against Akron, they just got shellacked. I mean, there's no other way to it. They played very well in the first half, but it just came down to the fact that when their shots don't fall, they don't at this point have a plan to make up for that. They only know how to play when their shots are falling right now, and I guess that happens when you're very young.
So, Tim, Northern Kentucky is, they're one of the fortunate few. They're one of the fortunate few teams that did win. Although, man, double overtime on Friday. That must have been something.
Yeah, so those are games they lose. We've seen them in the past. I mean, if you look at last year, they had Memphis up by 9, and going into the second half, they ended up losing that game. They went down to Texas A&M and played against a really good team that had Robert Williams, and really had that game in hands at times. Lost by 6, and then obviously the NIT last year against U of L. I mean, they're up 3 of the 4 quarters. And the fourth quarter, Ray Spalding and Dang Adele just kind of took over. So that's really reassuring. And John Brandon talked about that a lot as far as, those were games they lost in the past where they'd be up big at half and they were kind of more of a first half team than a second half team. So he finally got that, struggling. I mean, if you watch the game, about 40 seconds ago, they were down 6 and they hit 2 threes to take it to overtime. And then they were down again in overtime. They forced a double overtime, but they have a good mix of talent. The guys like Drew McDonald obviously are very well known for being very talented players to kind of lead them. But Jalen Tate's really taking a huge step forward for them, filling in for LeVon Holland. So yeah, it was a huge win for them, and I'm really excited to see the momentum they're starting with.
And I know we record on Sunday, so obviously we're going to miss this. But you're playing Wabash College tonight, and and I think that should be I think you should check that up to a spot in the win column.
Yeah, they're
it's a real clash of the Titans.
They're more getting ready for Friday. They're playing a Thanksgiving tournament with they play UNC Asheville, Coastal Carolina, and I can't remember. But another team has been in the tournament recently, but they're gonna be playing that all weekend. So
Manhattan.
That's what it is. Thank you.
Yeah. That's one of the. And then Jimmy, I know we've had this conversation about why play the non-Division I teams, but we know as well as everybody else, those are prep. Those are definitely to get ready for kind of the.
You should play non-Division I games because you need to. I think Adam Sandler was in was it The Longest Yard remake?
Yep.
When he was explaining, he was explaining, he used Appalachian State, which was really funny because Appalachian State, I think the previous year had just beaten Michigan, but it was like you play a team like Appalachian State and you kick the shit out of them.
Yep.
And that's exactly what you do. You play Wabash College and you hope to God you don't fumble it away and lose on a Sunday.
So, and Ryan, of course, IUPUI did get the win on Saturday against Eastern Illinois. So, take a bow. Your team is one of only 2 that's actually won a Division I game so far.
I mean, I was pretty impressed with that, as well as the Xavier loss. I think that we showed a lot of our depth in the loss to Xavier. I mean, we had a guy get ejected in the first half pretty early, Cameron Justice, who looks to be like our big scorer. And then Jalen Minette steps off the bench and drops 21 against a good Xavier team. And I've been impressed with both games. I mean, we look very guard heavy, and we showed that. I mean, we've had guards score in the 20s both games.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, we don't have somebody from Wright State on because I have questions. Wednesday they go and wax Western Carolina by 23, and then Saturday, and I actually think this is kind of this is kind of the bellwether where they play a Murray State team and they drop it by 19. And we're talking about a Wright State team that and I'm sure Tim, you can there's been the argument between Northern Kentucky and Wright State on which is going to be, kind of the early season front runner for the tops in the conference. What does that say that Wright State goes into Murray State and kind of drops that decision by double digits?
Nothing, in my honest opinion. As long as Wright State has Loudon Love, they're going to have a chance to win a lot of games.
Yeah.
That kid's really, really, really good. And I know losing Grant Benzinger was huge for them, but, Love was a huge asset for what they were looking forward to. And you could tell that was kind of the future plan. So in regards to Northern, I mean, I don't really love Drew McDonald guarding him by any means, but they did bring in a JUCO transfer named Silas Adhiki to kind of match him for size. Loudon Love's really good with the ball in his hands. He's really good in the post, but I think as long as he's on Wright State, they're gonna have a chance to win a lot of games.
Okay. So Jimmy,
yes,
what's going on with Milwaukee? I saw you lamenting yesterday about North Dakota beating them.
Yeah, they're not. They're not. It turns out they're not very good at basketball. Yeah, they're rough.
Oh, Jesus.
There's bright spots. Darius Roy seems to be a legit, all conference level point guard, shooting guard. He seems to be at the level where he can play with the ball or off the ball and do very well. At the same time, I saw a kid from North Dakota who looked like he got his scholarship from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Blow past Darius on a couple drives.
Oh, Jesus.
There was a guy who looked like the guy from North Dakota who looked like he drove to the game in a windowless van, and I think he scored like 16 points on him. He had just like the shittiest mustache. And it's just like this, it was like he looked like the worst weed dealer you've ever met. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. North Dakota was not a good basketball team, and they were ripping Milwaukee for most of the first half. And it wasn't because they were playing particularly well. They were shooting like 35% from the field in the first half. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but they were not doing great. It was just that Milwaukee was so terrible. They started 1 for 11 from the field, and then my friend Ken Peterson, sitting next to me, remarked that Milwaukee in its previous half and change of basketball, it was like 5 of 45 from the field or something like that.
Wow.
And you could tell there's no toughness on the team. There's a kid named Vance Johnson who was a Val Jordan recruit who looked like he could have been something good and then never got to play for Val Jordan because Val left.
Yep.
And he was playing very soft. I really wanted to see him throw an elbow, but like you have these just doughy kids from the other team that either looked like they spent as much time at the buffet as I did.
Wow.
Or either that, or they looked like they were they were just like hungry. It was very certain that like 2 of the kids on the team ate all of the food that was meant for the entire team.
Wow.
They were not ready to this is the North Dakota team that any Horizon League team 7 years ago would have run out the gym. Like Youngstown State of 2011 would have pasted this North Dakota team by 40 points.
Wow.
And they were winning by a lot. And Milwaukee came back because they started shooting well, and they started getting some open looks at 3 because North Dakota wasn't good on defense the entire time, except they started making shots. So there was a point where Carson Warren Newsom, I call him the law firm, he hit 4 3-pointers in a row. Darius Roy was doing well. North Dakota, which was not playing tough, was all of a sudden like playing completely off. Like all of a sudden every player with 1 foul with 5 minutes left in the second half was worried they were going to fall off. So they were going to they were all playing off. So Vance Johnson and Bobby Arthur Williams all started to get some inside looks, and Milwaukee started to come back, and they actually almost won the game, almost by like accident. they came back from like down like 15 points to like come back and almost win the game, and they ended up, missing it out at the end, and that's okay. Like you can't always, you're not always going to win the game. Like you're going to lose some games, and Milwaukee's going to lose a lot of games. But the fact of the matter is that it's a long season. But with Milwaukee, at least they can take solace in the fact that they're playing in the HoriZone League this season.
So let me ask with that, and we're not talking about Cleveland State. They can't, since they didn't hit their free throws. That's why they lost on Saturday. So that's But and that and the fact that only apparently Tyree Appleby and Jalen Hill wanted to score in the second half. That's the reason they lost. But they lost by 4. I'm not going to freak out too much about it, but maybe I should. Is it too? Speaking of which, maybe I guess I'll bring this question out to all of you. I know we're only 2 games in. Is it too early to freak out about the HoriZone League?
Yes and no. I don't know. A lot of HoriZone League teams could be very flighty. You could win 2 games real early and think you're going to win a lot of games. YSU's done that before, and then you win 12. So yeah, maybe a little early, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say we need to pump the brakes a little bit on giving up on the HoriZone League already. I think we're doing just fine. I mean, coming from the IPY stance, of course, but these are
you guys
games.
won a Division I game.
Exactly. but to be fair, I mean, these are all tune-ups. I mean, we're just waiting for the conference season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't freak out too much for the HoriZone League in general. I know for Oakland, we try to schedule a lot of heavy-weighted non-conference games early. That's just always been what we've done. And then going to the HoriZone League play, I wouldn't freak out too much, too early in the season to tell. But I would say some signs are pointing to a bad HoriZone League this year. But I guess we'll have to wait and find out.
I don't know if I'm just like, I don't know if just the amount of time that I've been around the conference has turned me into just this chain-smoking pessimist. But I've seen where
I wasn't aware you smoked, Jimmy.
Been. I don't actually smoke anything. But I'm gonna say this straight out. Like, it's real hard to be positive about a lot of things in the conference. Like, there are really good players. I don't see a team like, and I've watched a couple games. I like Oakland. I think Wright State's not going to be as bad as some people might expect them to drop off to, but like, this conference is not as good as it was 2 years ago. There's got to be a turnaround, and the good thing that you can take of it, there's an opportunity. So for those guys that are IUPUI, hey, look, there's an opportunity for us to be good. We can all of a sudden take a place in a conference and maybe use it as a springboard, because as soon as a team gets really good in the conference, we say goodbye to them and they move on to a different conference.
Yeah, it's
just but Milwaukee's going to be fine. HoriZone is going to be fine. It's just going to take time. Everything in basketball, in college basketball, is cyclical. Yeah. Unless you're a program like Kentucky, where you can just go and buy every player that you need in any given year.
Yeah, it worked real well for them against Duke, by the way.
You're going to have upperclassmen. You're going to have lowerclassmen. You're going to have, you're going to have coaches come in, coaches leave. There's a lot of things that have to, work, and it's about making an infrastructure. And across the conference, we all live in pretty decent recruiting. We're all living pretty decent recruiting beds. So there's always going to be a place for us to find, good talent if we need it in our backyards.
We do.
I know in Milwaukee we're getting better. It's getting better every year. A guy like Kevin Looney, who's playing for the Warriors right now, wasn't ever close to being the best guy for that team. Like, he was never close to being the best guy in Milwaukee for high school. So, we will get better. The Horizon League will get better. As of the moment, I'm not seeing a team that is really ready to, go to a postseason. And I don't see a conference that's really ready to make that move back into the teens. I suppose I could say RPI, but no, it's, what do they call the new one? The net.
The net.
And we're gonna see how it falls. Maybe the RPI has been so rough against the mid majors that maybe we're gonna start getting some better ratings or something. And maybe we're not as bad as we thought. But I watched. I was at a game last night of a team picked near the bottom of the Horizon League and a team picked near the bottom of the Summit League, and the level of basketball was about what you'd expect from that game. There was not a lot of actual set offense. There were just that I couldn't believe kids couldn't set screens and play off of screens. It was incredible. I watched middle school basketball in the last couple of years, where kids understand screening better than the guys did last night. And there's a real lack of toughness that one of the guys behind me said, I never thought I'd wish for the days of JJ Panoski for toughness in the post. And I mean, JJ was a good basketball player, but he was never like a tough he was never a tough inside presence. So I think it says something when guys who would get panned by fans for years would turn around and be missed for the things that they were panned for. That's just where I'm at. And things are rosier in other places around the conference. It's just maybe being in Milwaukee is just not. Milwaukee's not very fun at the moment.
Yeah. So from my standpoint, I think 2 games is way too. To me, 2 games is way too early. Just from the standpoint, it's you're just starting in the season. You're just shaking the rust off, and apparently you have to shake the rust off of free throws. Apparently, wasn't aware of that. I think the big tests are going to come. I think really as the teams start getting into these exempt tournaments. Good example. Obviously, Northern Kentucky is. They've got their tournament going on. Cleveland State is going to be jumping into the Buckeye Basketball Classic with all the teams they're going to be playing. That culminates into the game against Ohio State. So I think within the coming weeks will be more of a gauge of where the Horizon League is at, as opposed to the first 2 games of the season. Is it sucky that only 2 teams in the Horizon League beat Division I teams? Yes, of course it is. But is it an indication of the overall direction of the league as a conference as a whole? I don't necessarily think so.
It's too early for that.
It's way too early for that. It's way too early.
The sample size is way too small.
Yeah. So as Gary Waters for so many years said, judge not don't judge early, judge later, I guess. So I'm going to stick with that. And of course that there was a guy the last 2 seasons didn't apparently the judgment was already in, and that's why he's not there anymore. So I'm glad you brought the whole thing about the RPI and the net up, and obviously the transition from the RPI to the net. And I wanted to actually bring this to the panel here. How familiar are you guys with this new rating system, the net, that's been instituted by the NCAA?
Anybody want to jump in there?
Yeah, because we've talked about it in episodes past. I'm still kind of fuzzy on it, honestly.
I know it's supposed to give more. It's supposed to give more of a weight to games that you win that are true road games. So obviously, if you're it's meant to get teams to play true road games. Stop playing their toughest non-conference games in like neutral site tournaments. Start actually going to other teams' buildings. I don't know if it's going to work because, frankly, the biggest problem that we have as mid-majors in the mid-majority, if we want to, take that as our name still, the big problem that we have here is that we have seasons where we just don't play enough tough games. So a team like Seton Hall, that may be like an average team, will get so many strong road games that they'll win a couple and it will just blow up their net rating, and then all of a sudden it'll look like they're a much stronger team than they are, even if they go like say 2-7 against teams that are in the top 100 of the net. And that just comes from the fact that because they play each other so much, they're automatically given too much weight. It's I don't think there's a way to fix what that ails it. There's only a way through action. The mid majors have to take it upon themselves to massage that new rating system to work in their favor, and that means exactly what it was going to mean for the RPI. It means get yourself better wins. So you have to get better true road wins. So you need to have teams. You have to have non-conference games that are against good teams that are going to, challenge your team. You might lose them. It might hurt you. It might help you, but you can't just play your conference, win a couple big games in the non-conference, and then win your conference and expect to get that that at-large bid in the NCAA tournament. It's just not going to happen. You can't. You have to challenge your team.
Yeah. So, I mean, from a Horizon League standpoint, have Horizon League teams as a whole done enough on the non-conference front? I mean, I guess that's kind of what I'm driving it down to. What have they, from a scheduling standpoint, have Horizon League teams done enough to, and it might not benefit them this year, but down the road, have they done enough to be able to kind of make it at least a gallant effort to offset, the issues that they, specifically from the computer ranking standpoint, be it the RPI, be it the net, have they done enough to kind of address that issue?
Possibly. I mean, you look at this week alone. So Green Bay plays at Iowa. Detroit plays at Butler. You see like IUPUI, playing at Boston College. Who maybe Boston College isn't like the biggest team in the world by any means, but still. Toledo is going to Wright State.
I don't know. We made Boston College look pretty great.
They were in the game for a minute, though.
Yeah, we were winning by like 12 at halftime.
Yeah. Milwaukee goes to UC next week. NKU goes to UC. University of Cincinnati that is. So I think that the Horizon's doing a good job of scheduling major conferences. I don't mean as much as they can with their conference schedule.
This is the problem. The home team wins in college basketball 72% of the time. That's more than in any sport at any of the major levels, pro or college. So when you're playing those games, you're going to get the home team winning more often than not. And the reason for that is because you have strong high major teams are hosting a lot of low majors. They're hosting some mid majors, and it's hard to win games on the road, period. The problem isn't those games. Schools like Gonzaga, like Butler, who were mid majors that kind of have transcended that level and moved up, have made the move to made those moves because they were willing to play anywhere at any time. And that is something that you have to be able to do to win that way. You have to be really, 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 really good at basketball. So not every team's going to be there ever, and especially they're not going to be there every year. So you have to figure out a way to build up the whole group. And the way you do that is you start to eliminate the terrible games. instead of playing St. Francis of Pennsylvania every other year, Youngstown State should replace that game with, another Wabash game. So you're not screwing up that net rating by playing a team that's going to be sub 300 in the what used to be the RPI. You don't want to you need to eliminate bad games. You need to get up good games. So what that's going to mean is that means that we have to work with other conferences, and we have to be willing to travel and play in other difficult gyms, and those teams have to be able to do it. If I were to change the net before it really goes into effect and does things, I would give schools a major boost for non-conference home games, or taking non-conference home games against very good teams. So you have, yes, a Kentucky hosting a Duke will help Kentucky, but you can also make sure that like a school that might be top 100, whoever's top in like the Summit League or the Horizon League at any given year, if they get a true home game against a team like Cincinnati, you reward both of those teams. Cincinnati for willing to go to Northern Kentucky, that would be, that will help. That should help them. That should help Northern Kentucky. You need to incentivize it for these big schools to go play at the smaller schools, because that's going to build attendance and that's going to build interest, and that's in the NCAA's favor. Whether or not that actually shows the strength of the programs, whether or not that strengthens the actual basketball itself, I would argue it does in the long run. But you want those teams to be going out of their comfort zone, and for the Horizon League, it's going to be about making deals with the MAC, making deals with the Summit, begging the MVC for a deal. Put it together where you do what these challenges are, but you do them on a larger scale, and you do them where you're putting your best teams up against the best teams of all these other conferences, and eliminating the games where an Oakland might host a terrible team and have that ruin their RPI or their net rating. You don't want those things. You need to get better with it. So there's a lot of things they can do, but really you just got to play better games and you got to win them.
Jimmy, I'm glad you brought it. I'm actually glad you brought up the MAC and the conference versus conference kind of thing, because we've talked about this in episodes past, where you have a situation, and it's we keep mentioning it, and if you look at even the first couple of games, you see Horizon League MAC, Horizon League Summit League. Is it? And I pose the question to all of you: are we getting to a point where we should be, this should have already happened, where we should be talking to these other conferences about these challenge games, these challenge games similar to what the Big Ten ACC has, if for no other reason
might be too late.
Is it too late for this year or too late permanently?
Yeah, too late permanently. I mean, the Horizon League has locked itself into this spot where it's going to be a 25 to 28 ranked league. How is it going to convince a Summit ranked 18 that we need to help each other out by playing a conference challenge? If I'm the Summit League, it looks to me like playing a challenge against the Horizon League is going to do nothing but hurt it. The Horizon League has to have a couple good years before it's going to really be able to convince those conferences that this is in their best interest. So somebody rise up and do better.
But on the flip side is they're already playing all these teams anyway. I mean, they really are. I mean, you already have Horizon League teams playing Summit League teams. You already have Horizon League teams playing MAC teams. What's the difference between that and now?
Well, you need to have the good Horizon League teams play the good MAC teams. You don't need it to be decided by geography and who calls who has a relationship with who. You need it to be decided by who is one of the better teams this year. They need to be playing the better teams this year, because it's not going to help, I don't even know who's the strongest MAC programs right now, but it's not going to help any of them to play us. You know, we should right now. A challenge should be us against whoever's the crappiest team in the MAC, and then put whoever's up top of the Horizon League, Oakland or Wright State, Northern Kentucky. They need to be playing these MAC teams that are at the top. They need to be playing the MVC teams that are at the top because it'll help them to have less bad games on their rating, and the more good games they play, the better their rating is, which helps the other team. It's how the high major conferences end up with those gigantic ratings. It's because they have it's because they are able to they get these big great ratings because they're able to play 20 games against in their own echo chamber and just helping their rating over and over and over again. So this is the downside with where the Horizon League is at, is we need to be able to limit the bad games. And because we're the conference that has 10 teams and we play a full round robin, that means every team in the conference is going to play Milwaukee twice. So I'm sorry for your net, but you're going to play us twice. Hopefully not 3 times if you end up drawing us in the conference tournament, if we even make the conference tournament.
So what is that actually is one. This is kind of the last question I wanted to pose to the group here, with regards to the new tournament format. This 1 through 8 tournament format where teams 9 and 10 are not even going to be invited to the tournament and obviously it's a departure from what the Horizon League has done in the past. So what is your all assessment? Because I know Jimmy and I have talked about this multiple times, but in fact dedicated an entire episode to this. But where do you guys come out on the new tournament format?
Well, if I can jump in real quick on the new tournament format, I think personally to host a playoff game, a postseason game in your own arena is going to be great. And then the fact that there's still going to be enough games going on at Little Caesars Arena. Probably the rest of the student media, I don't know if you guys got a chance to go up to LCA last year, but from Oakland is about 35 minutes down the road. That arena, even though we're not filling it up, is still one of the nicest in the world. So having that opportunity to still play enough games there is great. And then I think the aspect of being able to host your own playoff game or being the early rounds, I think that's a great format.
We used to be able to host our own playoff games. That used to be part of the deal.
And then coming back, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how would the conference championship game be in the arena?
Oh, the conference championship game? I don't think they would be able to fit everyone in there.
On ESPN, you'd have people hanging from the rafters. It would look so damn cool on national television. Instead, people are going to get a view of 12,000 empty seats.
Well, that would be pretty cool. Again, the atmosphere at the arena, just from the home opener against Toledo, they have the largest attendance for any home opener in Oakland's history. So the atmosphere there is great. Just from that community cares about their team.
Yes, that's true, Mark.
Because Youngstown could not care less. I would love if people showed up, but it doesn't happen. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I'm with you there.
Hey, I'll say this about Youngstown, man. They filled it up against games with Butler. They put 6,000 in the Bigley Center before.
Oh, yeah. Well,
that has happened.
Because we knew we were going to get padlocked into a tight room. The last time I really remember was probably, when was that? Damian Ergel, when Damian Ergel was a Penguin.
Holy cow.
And they beat Cleveland State in Cleveland on New Year's Eve, and then people packed the house, and then Cleveland State beat us by 42.
I remember that game.
And then no one has showed up since.
I think it was 2015. I think it was the last time Cleveland State was any good.
I think 2014, 2015, and then no one shows up since. That's actually one of the games that we play as media is the we count the attendance in the crowd and then compare it to what the paperwork says at the end, and we all just laugh about it. If it'll say 3,000 and there was 412 people in the stands.
Attendance secrets revealed.
This is a problem with college basketball, is that it's becoming harder and harder to fill seats, and that's obviously going to be felt the most at the places that don't put as many people in the stands to begin with, which is like Youngstown State or Milwaukee, which we actually had a pretty decent crowd last night. I think we had about 3,000 or so in the arena. They called it homecoming, so they got probably about 900 students out for it. It was pretty solid. But overall, college basketball attendance is down. So you need to be doing you need to be looking at the trends of college basketball versus everything. I mean, having it on television, being able to get pretty much every game on TV or on streaming in some way, shape, or form makes it less pressing for fans to have to go down to the games. So in Milwaukee, we've got fans on Waukesha who still watch every game, but they don't play. They don't go to every game because they don't need to go to every game. The urgency is less there for me to go to every game because I don't need to be there for everything. I can get it on my computer while I'm at work. I don't need to leave. I don't need to leave work. I can throw it up on that computer while I'm waiting for somebody to come in or waiting for somebody who's in the business office to get done with one of my customers to get done. So it's less of a need to change things around and go out to the game. So this Horizon League that has had a lot of schools that have never been able to fill their arenas or even come close, that has just kind of been extrapolated by this drop in college basketball attendance overall. So when we're coming to what do we want to do with the conference tournament? Oh yeah, that's right. Let's just keep acting as Olympia's practice showcase so that they can show the Big Ten that they should have the tournament there. And then we'll just
it's going to work for them, I think.
Yeah, it's going to work. They're going to get the Big Ten tournament. Good for them. But at the same time, 18,000 seats and 13,000 of them are going to be empty for the championship game, and it's going to look like absolute trash. You could put Oakland versus Detroit in the Horizon League championship game, and they would not come close to filling that gym. I would be willing to bet all the money in my pockets on that. It is not. We're not in a place as a conference that can do it. There's this idea that you're going to put the tournament in the same spot every year is ridiculous. This idea that you're going to drop off the two bottom teams. The 9 and 10 teams have been in the semifinals and the finals every year in Detroit.
Yep.
And is that because the conference tournament format sucks? Yes, it is. But you don't fix it by limiting the 9 and 10 teams from it. And that's not coming from a guy who's biased because his team's probably going to be one of the 9 or 10 teams. That's coming from a guy who knows what it was like earlier when John LeCrone had put together the best tournament format for mid-majors ever that led to the most amount of NCAA tournament victories from any conference outside of the top 8, which would be the Power 6 and like the A10 and the Mountain West. The Horizon League won more conference NCAA tournament games than all those. And by the way, that place doesn't change when you take out Butler's 2 Final Fours. The Horizon League was a very good conference that put its best teams in their NCAA tournament, and now it doesn't do that. And why doesn't it do that? It's just because of this stupid format that we knew was dead on arrival, and it didn't change anything because why? An athletic director needs another $20,000 in their coffers at the end of the year. So let's do that instead of playing a home game and maybe selling that money in tickets for a home game on a Tuesday, and then going and winning a tournament or putting the best team in the tournament and then getting some NCAA tournament units that will actually put real money in our coffers for 5 or 6 years. The whole thing is screwed. It's so bad, and to put it in those gyms, just terrible. Green Bay, Wright State, I'm sure Cleveland State, I'm sure Northern Kentucky. I would love to see Northern Kentucky host a Horizon League championship game on ESPN on a Tuesday night in the BB&T Arena. You tell me right now that would not be a killer atmosphere. That would be incredible. Insane. It would be incredible. And all of you guys, like, I'm I don't know if any of you have been around. You know, Bob's been around twice as long as I have, and I can tell you that right now, since I've been around since 2005, and I can tell you right now that from where I've been with my experience, the old tournament format was what made the Horizon League special, and we maybe didn't keep. You know, maybe we would have lost schools like Valpo. Maybe we would have lost Valpo anyways, but doing what we did to a conference tournament format just sped up that process. It made sure that Valpo left earlier, which ended up having us to get IUPUI. Prove IUPUI gets better. That's good. I really hope IUPUI does well. That'll be great. I think that in a conference tournament in championship game in the Farmers Coliseum could get packed. That would be fantastic. But you're never going to get IUPUI. Say IUPUI becomes like the 2 seed in the conference tournament. They're never going to get 8,000 people to go show up in Detroit.
Absolutely not.
No,
they're not going to do it. Milwaukee's we were in the conference championship game a couple of years ago. We couldn't do it. Northern Kentucky couldn't do it. And it was Northern Kentucky's first time. They couldn't. Cleveland State didn't do it. Yes, nobody could do it, and this is because why?
People in, and they didn't do it.
We bussed people in too, and the reason we weren't getting it was because it was short notice, and you had basically 2 road games.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. Well, with that, and hate to get on a down note, but with that, we're going to go ahead and close out this episode, gentlemen. It was a pleasure speaking with all of you. I'm very happy that we had all of you on today. That was it's a good conversation, and we're happy. We are happy to have had you.
Thanks for having us.
Very much.
All right. And of course, you can find episodes of the HoriZone Roundtable on sportsax.com, hax.com, and of course, wherever you can find podcasts and, your Amazon Echo and Google Home devices. And of course, now you can find us on Spotify too. So we will go ahead and see you next episode. Thank you for listening.